There exists a class of creatures in this world seen by only a few people, yet never proven to exist. We collectively refer to them as unidentified mysterious animals, unconfirmed lifeforms, or UMA for short. Hello everyone, welcome to the World in 10 Minutes series. Throughout humanity's long history of farming and herding, water has always been the core resource, and the focus of conflict. Man versus nature is often reflected in those seemingly insignificant waterworks, but in the arid lands of western Colorado, that struggle takes on a mysterious hue. Today I want to share with you the legend of a giant beast living beneath America, the enemy of waterworks in worm-ridden pastureland, the Ogrino. Ogrino is a creature from folklore in the American West, usually described as a gigantic subterranean worm with a spiral-shaped body, indestructible, and fond of dry environments, so it tunnels underground, damaging aqueducts and dams below, and releasing the water. In 2008, in New Mexico, USA, when a Permian trace fossil was identified, Ogrino Ogrino fossils were named after this creature. It is a spiral trace fossil, identified then, mainly found in lower Permian strata of non-marine sedimentary deposits in New Mexico. On bedding surfaces it appears as a continuous series of horseshoe-like structures. Paleontologists believe the Ogrino traces were made by worm-like animals in stable and fairly cohesive suction sediments, forming open shallow burrows. Despite this grand name, the Ogrino is known more through stories passed by word of mouth. In 1941, American geographer Ronald Eves published an article in the Journal of American Folklore titled Folklore of East Central Colorado, and described it like this: in irrigation districts, ranchers often, in a humorous way, express anger at the Ogrino's activity. The sole mission of this evil underground creature is to drain water from irrigation canals. It is described as a giant corkscrew-like worm that bores beneath the ground, leaving spiral holes several feet down, and lining its tunnels with silica to prevent collapse. It is said that the Ogrino moves very slowly, and is immune to all poisons and weapons, and cannot alter its fixed direction of travel. To this day, local residents have not admitted to seeing this spiral worm, yet it is still believed to be real. They would say, the ghost ditch is still leaking, isn't it? Mr. F4 wrote in the article, that region has many accounts of pseudoscientific creatures, and this largely came from those French trappers who between 1790 and 1830, many among them, wintered in Brown's Hole by the Green River. Local authorities attributed these creatures to excessive drinking, and tended to cite delirium tremens as evidence. That is reasonable to some extent, because according to reports, hallucinations caused by tremulous delirium may have given rise to such fictional animals. Just as in Jersey in the eastern United States, reports of the devil rose in step with the local supply of apple brandy. In short, the author believed that legends like the Ogrino were entirely false campfire tales, fantasies invented among American lumberjacks. I do not deny, like those William Cox collected, the creatures from North American folklore are often greatly exaggerated, to a large extent. But the reason I chose to make the Ogrino a standalone topic here is entirely because, while researching this material, I found that giant worm-like unknown creatures, especially in the Americas, are not isolated cases, and all seem linked to water or geological change. For example, in Chilean folklore, there is a giant serpent called Pirugina, whose name comes from Mapuche language, and can be translated as the bloodline of worms. For the Chilean writer Nicasio Tangle, in his 1976 work, Dictionary of Chilotan Linguistic Resources, Pirugina is a gigantic serpent that takes more than a quarter century to mature. And once fully grown, it breaks through the earth, triggering violent earthquakes. Its head emerges first, and moments later its enormous eyes open to scan the surroundings. If it sees any human or animal, its piercing gaze kills them instantly. Once its body fully rises above the ground, the red scales covering it gradually turn the color of soil. When that transformation ends, it falls apart into a swarm of frenzied worms. In the Mapuche worldview, serpents appear often in myth, and Piruvina, here, takes the form of a great beast fused with worms, or a subterranean swarm animal. Some South American historians and folklorists now tend to interpret the story of Piruvina through geology. Of course, these giant worms are not all half divine in nature. In the summer of 1952, in Central America, two fishermen in Imes, Kansas claim that at a place outside town called the Sinkhole, they saw a creature 15 to 30 feet long and as wide as a car tire, a giant worm-like being. In 1953, two boys, Albert Newfield and George Greer, also reported seeing it. On October 12 that year, an article titled "Kansas Monster, Sinkhole Sam Appears Again" was published in the Brownsville Advance. The article used the name Sinkhole Sam. The story went roughly like this. About a year earlier, two fishermen were fishing by the shore, but caught nothing at all. Then Sam suddenly surfaced. According to them, the thing had a flat head, and about 15 feet behind its head there was some kind of tail, with a snake-like body in between. This incident triggered the largest monster hunt in the sinkhole's history. Many people came to watch. Some who claimed to have seen Sam said its body measured about 21 inches around. Albert tried firing a few shots at the creature, but the bullets clearly missed. Little George Greer was standing on the bridge then, and he also swore that he had seen the monster like Sam. The local papers covered it extensively. Some believed it, others scoffed, because this sinkhole was really just a surface excavation. They felt a lake monster was impossible. But those who believed Sam was real thought it was likely some prehistoric creature that during a flood, along with a school of fish, swept in from nearby Iman Lake or the Little Arkansas River and carried there. Both sides held their ground, and tourists kept pouring in toward the sinkhole, but fishermen wanted nothing to do with it. They had no wish to fall to a lake monster. There are many more unknown creatures like this, such as Canada's Yukon giant worm and Brazil's minhocao. These legends have never vanished. Instead, with time, they quietly slipped beneath the reinforced concrete of modern cities. If the Ogrino is the rancher's myth of failing waterworks, then there is another species, an even more astonishing giant worm, quietly fused with the modern subway system. It is called the Devourer. It is described as a colossal worm, merged with the image of a subway train. Its body ranges from 27 to 45 meters long. Its body formed by linked carriage-like segments, allowing it to bend and fold freely underground. At the front of its head are 4 vertical slits, like 4 twisted mouths, which open to reveal churning internal tissue, an organ that serves at once as digestive tract and neural core. This giant has no vision, and relies entirely on releasing low-frequency vibrations and receiving echoes to build a 3-dimensional awareness. Victims are often precisely located because of screams and footsteps made in panic. True to the name Devourer, it expands its feeding mouth to create a powerful vacuum, swallowing large amounts of prey at once, and it can digest almost any material. Yet what is truly unsettling is its subtle relationship with humans. In most cases, the Devourer shows no interest in humans, but roughly every 12 to 16 months, one individual attempts to disguise itself as a normal train, running along existing rails and stopping in sequence, waiting for humans to board. This creature exists only on Nectar, a continent in the 7th world. Nectar Island Psychiatric Ward 3 patient report described it this way, as follows. Returned on the 7th day after boarding. Unable to recall what happened on the train, no obvious facial abnormality, but refuses to look into mirrors. At night repeatedly mutters the same phrase, He is counting. He is counting. He is counting. The victim vanished 3 weeks after admission. The ward's doors and windows stayed sealed. Surveillance showed the patient rising alone and walking toward the wall. Then static filled the screen for threes. After that, the subject was never found again. 3 miners from the marsh sector said, "That day we were looking for parts by the pit, when we heard movement down the tracks. A railway abandoned for 10 years, and there stood an enormous train. It rose upright like a giant worm. We lay still for half an hour, not daring to make a sound. It did not move at all. We learned later that it comes only when it hears sound." According to witnesses, the object was over 20 meters long, stitched together from multiple broken railcars, and the joints showed traits of living tissue. Most striking of all were the windows, each one filled with a white substance, with abstract human faces surfacing within. What truly chilled the blood was that when someone tried to stop this monster, they discovered it was not alone. On Nectar Island, within the tangled underground tunnel network, there exists a bizarre symbiotic ecosystem. White soft-bodied passenger-like creatures are deeply fused with its internal organs. These beings normally act as biological components, sustaining the devourer's life functions. In the tunnels, wander attendants whose heads have been replaced by loudspeakers, and clusters formed from station lockers are seen as eggshells for reproduction. This ecosystem almost perfectly replicates a functioning subway system, except that beneath its surface, it points to a world parallel to human civilization, yet utterly different from it. Follow this trail further, and a greater conspiracy begins to surface. Where did the mutation experiment start? Where did the bizarre ecologies in the tunnel network really come from? All of this runs deeper than you imagine. If you also want to pierce this layered fog, and explore the truth behind the conspiracy yourself, then come with me, and begin an adventure across this mysterious continent. Though the legends of giant worms are far apart geographically, and differ in cultural background, they show striking similarities in narrative structure. Most are tied to water, geological upheaval, and the hidden force of the land, in close connection, especially Minhocau's tunneling habit, and its destruction of farmland embankments, closely echo the Ogrino legend. Cryptozoologist Dr. Carl Schuker once tried to explain such worm legends through a large Sicilian. This theory was later supported by Professor Heuvelmans as well. But the same question remains. Can Sicilians really grow that large? As far as we know, the largest Sicilian ever recorded is Thompson's Sicilian from Colombia, which can reach 1.5 meters and weigh about 1 kilogram, but even that is still much smaller than Ogrino or Sinkhole Sam. Personally, I do not favor using theories of surviving prehistoric animals to explain these things, because it is hard to imagine a Permian creature living underground all this time, and growing even larger than before. So I believe we should set aside the exaggeration of folklore, and examine these giant worm phenomena from a more grounded perspective, such as leakage in water control systems. Eastern Colorado lies on the western edge of the Great Plains, with unusual geology beneath the surface. Permian, Triassic sedimentary layers are widespread. These rock layers naturally contain fractures and porous structures. When humans build irrigation canals and dams, water pressure follows those natural cracks, seeking a way out, causing the so-called inexplicable leaks. As for Piruvina, the Chilean geologist Christian Curiwal wrote in a 2017 paper, it's an example of interpreting natural elements within a specific worldview and cultural frame. The serpent opening its eyes and looking around describes the downward surge of lava, while its deadly gaze upon living beings clearly mirrors how animals die quickly when exposed to burning lava, and the red scales slowly turning earth-colored, along with the idea of decay, seem to allude to cooling lava and its changing colors, as well as the chaotic forms that resemble worms. In short, this is a legend meant to teach tribal members about volcanoes and geological disaster. As for Sinkhole Sam, it may have been a misidentification of some large catfish, or even an alligator gar. Cases of big fish in North American rivers, mistaken for snakes, are not uncommon. And as Mr. Evers said, excessive drinking may not be such a bad explanation after all. Still, all this is only my personal speculation. The mystery of giant worms will likely have to be left to time itself. This concludes today's episode. Thank you for watching.